Second time. I do wrong. No, that was perfect, sir. Good job. Okay.
I'd like to call this special board meeting to order. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Augie, would you call the roll, please?
Bruner.
Here.
Lorenzen.
Here.
Farnham.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Ludington.
Here.
Patrick.
Here.
Voigt.
Here. The sole purpose of this meeting is to consider the contract for the ambulance service commencing June 1st, 2019 for the next 5 years with Horizon Healthcare. We'll also be going into closed session briefly after those discussions, and I would like to open the floor for any public comment at this point. Hearing none, the ambulance committee, Derek?
So this iteration is after obviously committee meetings, meetings with Horizon, state's attorney and their lawyer, and after one draft process. So apologies to get this to you so late. Understand that we may have to delay, but would like to proceed if we can. This basically follows, or the template used for this was the Vermilion County, Indiana contract. Some of it was plug and play. Some of it, obviously, we had to make significant changes to in order to fit with both the bid spec and the bid given by Horizon, and just try to find common ground and get everything we wanted in this contract. So, with that in mind, any questions or comments before we get going, I guess, to me or other committee members? Cool.
Yeah, I'm still reading if that's okay.
No, we can meditate here for a few minutes. We've got time. And we've got more time if we need it.
So all your particulars and stuff is all in here.
So, a lot of this is the boilerplate and contract language. I mean, there are obviously important parts in here. I think the big pieces, as far as what's important to our constituents, are mostly summed up in Exhibit A. Those 18 bullet points at the back, the last 2 pages. That has a lot of the requirements that we laid out or things that we agreed on in that committee meeting with Horizon Health. In addition, I would steer you towards what else? The pages numbered, but two pages prior to that exhibit, talking about breach and enforcement. And so one of the things that we had discussed most recently, as far as the whole county board, John, you and I talked here about just enforcement and things like that, and the fine piece. So that can be found on line 14 and 15 and breach and enforcement. And so that looks quite a bit different than the last iteration. Carl, I guess for you, that's kind of where we made some changes after our discussion, after the first draft came out. So that's, if you're going to do a speed read through it, those are the things I would look at. Paragraphs 14 and 15 in Exhibit A. I guess we can just call it exhibit since there's only one.
On number 11, down toward the bottom, it talks about Horizon agreed that will not look area residents exempt that arises or fails to receive payment in whole or in part from a care organization or any third-party reimbursement. This means that you're right off if the person cannot pay the difference between what Medicare pays and the insurance. The reason why I'm asking, I was taken to Union last year with the ambulance. The bill was, I think, $1,700. My share was $250, which I paid. What happens if the person cannot pay the $250?
We'll work with them with our financial assistance program and do everything we can, but we are required, because we're not-for-profit, to do a portion of charity care, and so some of those will fall into that charity care piece.
So in other words, if they can't pay, eventually, just,
Eventually,
okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I just wondered.
On number 17, what all are you envisioning as to being the peer review process? I mean, that'll be pretty much in-house, I assume, but. I mean, I'm not against it, I'm just,
Yeah, peer review would be just whoever, the Horizon, the ambulance service, I mean, that's basically, in my mind, that one's just mentioning something that's basically already in place, right? So, we have, I mean, I guess if it came to our attention that there had never been any peer review during the course of the contract, that would be something that would be brought up, like, hey, aren't you guys supposed to? But they're held to, I assume, I frankly don't know with the
It's
peer
already
review
addressed in that
process.
meeting.
whoever,
So yes, that is something that you have to have in place when operating in the state of Illinois. The medical
Right.
director and the EMS system coordinator have to review a percentage of your runs. Anyone where CPR is formed, anyone where advanced level procedure is performed, those are automatically reviewed, and they're reviewed outside of our facility. They're reviewed at this point through our system, Carl system.
okay,
I was gonna say that's a state.
That's state requirements, I
Yeah.
can't change that.
It's kinda like an audit.
right, they basically,
They take a
Carl,
percentage, and then if they find difficulties, then they would expand their search.
Okay.
Because they're operating under a physician's license,
sure,
he has the ability to audit them at any time.
okay.
Just wanna make sure you have it. So I assumed you did.
Yeah.
Maybe if I read the whole thing, I'll go.
Originally, that was in Exhibit A, but because we thought that was the most important thing, we separated that out.
That's good for me.
What was that there?
So he was asking about response time. And I
Yeah.
said, we had pulled that,
Right.
because we view that as the
Right.
most important factor,
Right.
pulled that out, separated it, and put it in with enforcement and the fine piece. So that's where that is now located.
So the only enforcement is on the timeliness. Is the enforcement on any of these other?
Just like there would be with any other contract, right? So the fine piece is specific to the response time, right? So, and that's where, how that came about is we looked at this and we said, we look at any other contract that we have, or if we had not included the fine piece at all, this stuff would still be part of the contract and enforceable by fine, if wheels fall off the bus, we're finding them in breach, we annul the contract, or we go out of that relationship. So the kernel of where we started from on the response time and the fines was based on response time, right? So sorry if I said that wrong. So we found that as a starting point in the Mattoon contract.
Right.
And so our discussions, like really a lot of these, certainly from, early bullet points here as far as how many ambulances and how many para-assist vehicles and staffing and all that is solved if they're responding with people they're supposed to respond with within 2 minutes. So that's kind of from our discussion how that came about.
Right. So if in Exhibit A, say there's a problem with the Department of Health with their licensing or something, then how do we deal with that? Is
That's something that's almost will take care of itself because Department of Health licensing requires that you have that. So
there will be no consequences from us if there's some violations of Exhibit A.
Sure, if it's egregious enough,
They lose the contract.
contract's
I
going.
mean, it's still a violation of contract since they're obligated to do it.
That's what Mark says.
Yeah.
The fines have to do with response times, the others would fall under contract law. And then by them not following the contract in the bid, they would then void the contract.
That's pretty clear to me.
Yeah. The only other issue I could see would be quality of care, but they have such a vested interest, don't get nailed on that on the other side.
Right.
Everything kinda
reason.
hangs
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, it does.
If they don't do one, it's hard to meet the other. And if you
Yeah.
don't meet the other, then it's, you know, it's just, it's kind of a web that if the wheels fall off of one section of the vehicle, they're gonna, you know, eventually.
The whole vehicle's gonna hit the ditch.
Right.
That's bad fun, I'm sorry.
I'm not seeing any questions or
Looks good to me.
problems, yeah.
Well, what's your pleasure?
Ready, everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay.
I make a motion to vote for the approval of the contract.
I second.
Did you hear Augie?
I did.
Buttons? Phil
Yes.
seconded and
One,
Andy
two. Right.
made the motion. Okay. Further discussion, please. Assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk?
Bruner,
Present.
Lorenzen,
Yes.
Farnham,
Yes.
Chittick,
Yes.
Luddington,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
5-1.
It does carry, gentlemen.
Did you want your vote?
That concludes what we're going to do for the special meeting. I would, however, entertain a motion to go into closed session for a few minutes prior to our study session.
So moved.
Derek moves, Phil seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, we will discuss a couple of the, oh, for the purpose, I'm sorry, for the purpose of pending litigation, okay? That's all we're gonna discuss.
Those are my favorite examples.
We're not going to take any action. The state's attorney gave me some items to make sure that the board was aware of, and then he will be, if he can be, at the next meeting, okay? So, can you include that in to your motions, gentlemen, is that all right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll go in and we'll be back. It won't take more than a few minutes.
I got a new
I've been waiting for
partner.
this.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, being no other purpose to have before this special session or special meeting, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, we're adjourned. We got about. All right, we'll start the study session. We've already said the pledge, so we'll just go right into it. Today, I'd like to introduce to you Matt Schuler, CPA, from, I never can pronounce it.
It's Whipfley.
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 Whipley or Whip?
Whipfley.
There's a
P. Whip.
Think of flea.
I can see it. I can see it. Whipley. I'm not going to have trouble with it.
All right, I admit it. Some people won't admit.
See here, Donnie, you show up and we just place goes
I know it.
to pieces.
Anyway, Matt is here to present the audit to us today, which will be on the agenda for approval at the next regular scheduled meeting. Matt, if you'd like to.
I'm gonna sit right here or
Yes,
sit over the
please.
corner?
This is good.
Alright.
If it's good, you don't need to do more.
Alright. So, good morning, I'm Matt Sheeler, I'm a partner with Whipfley. So Whipfley is actually someone's last name. The original founder of the firm, his name was Clarence Whipfley, so it doesn't stand for anything, it's just his original last name, so.
So blame him.
So blame him, there you go.
Your fault.
So I do want to remind you, you'll see the draft stamp kind of throughout the course of this. We're just in the process of finalizing the audit. Just got a few hanging things that we need to get to finalize. What we've already done is extended the comptroller's report, so there's no delay in filing, there'll be no fines or anything like that, but we're within a very short time frame of issuing, so if you have questions, you know, I'm gonna try to touch on the reports that you have in front of you, but just kind of feel free to ask questions, there's no bad question, and I'm happy to explain anything that you may have, so. Maybe just to give you a little overview of our audit process, you know, we're a new audit firm, so just to let you know kind of what we do. One of the first things we do is we gain an understanding of the county's internal controls, just to get a feel for how cash is collected, how bills are paid, how everything flows through those key office areas. So, and based on that, we do what's referred to as a risk-based audit. That's what the standards dictate that we do. We conduct various fraud interviews throughout the course of the audit, especially at the onset of the audit, just to ask the questions if there's any knowledge or if you're aware of any fraud. We do use a term that's referred to as materiality during the course of the audit. Materiality helps us in sampling transactions that are going in and out of the county. We don't audit every transaction that goes in and out of the county. We do confirm significant amounts of your assets, your revenues with outside third parties. A lot of it's through the state of Illinois, and then your local banks were able to get those bank confirmations. So overall, we have 12 Illinois county audits that we do. I'm the partner in charge of those. So this is kind of what we do for those 11/30 fiscal year ends. So we do a lot of them this time of year. So first thing I want to go over is it's the small letter. It's labeled communication with those charged with governance.
If I have that in my 300 pages.
You know,
It should,
Or is it part of that?
right here.
I wonder if it was maybe stapled to another one, potentially.
Oh,
It's underneath that
I'll need
letter
that. I'm
and the
sorry.
contract.
you got one, you got one. Did I not get?
It's under this?
Could be.
No,
What did you say? Where is it?
mine was under the contract.
You're referring to one that says circuit clerk at the top?
No,
That's
it's communication with those charged with governance.
I don't know
The
what you got.
letter. Yeah, no, I don't.
Well, maybe, I know Josh had sent those over.
I didn't see that.
Okay, maybe he didn't attach that, but
I'll just take a look here.
that's okay. I'll just, I guess, just briefly touch on,
Would you like for me to go make a copy? Or no?
no,
Sorry.
let's
Enough trees have died today.
Yeah, there's a lot. This is just a letter that we're required to do at the end of an audit. Just let you know our responsibility during the audit, what we're responsible for doing. On the second page, we talk about, actually on the third page, we talk about that we had no difficulties during the course of the audit. Sometimes with new audits, we can have difficulties in just dealing with people. We had no issues there. We had no disagreements during the course of the audit. So that's kind of the quick snapshot of that little audit, or little letter there. So now let's go to the big report. I printed mine two-sided. So yours is. So let's go. Yeah. So that's the one labeled financial report. Yeah.
I've got two one-sided, yeah.
You've got, that's the circuit clerk in your left hand.
Oh, just a separate piece,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
I just now saw that. So we're looking at the
Yeah,
county
financial,
document.
yeah. I'll go over the circuit clerk last. So again, I just want to remind you, this is still in draft state. But let's just go and turn back a few pages to pages 1 and 2 at the bottom. And they're labeled at the bottom center. This is our independent auditor's report. And you'll see at the top of page 2 where we state our opinion. It is a clean, unmodified opinion. Maybe you're still, you've got some extra. Yeah, you got the circuit clerk.
That's what I got the wrong one.
It's a thick one.
Yep, sorry.
This is the small one, okay.
No wonder I can't get
That is the small one. You wait for the other one, okay, it's coming later.
You may want to take your binder clips off. It may be easier to kind of flip through stuff. Okay, so again, pages 1 and 2 is our opinion. It's fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's that clean, unmodified opinion, so that's always the one that you want. And I think maybe last year you guys converted from cash to accrual, so
Yes.
everything was good from that perspective. So let's turn to page 13. I like to point out key numbers on here. Like you guys pointed out, there's a lot of information in here. We could really go into a lot of detail, but I assume you don't want to go over every last detail on here. So page 13 is the county's statement of net position. So normally you see information that's presented, fund by fund. This condenses your financial information into a single column. It includes everything except those funds that are considered fiduciary in nature. Pages 13 and 14 are presented on a term that's referred to as the full accrual basis of accounting. Information after this, so pages 15 and beyond, are presented on the modified accrual, and really the easiest way to make sure you understand what full accrual is. Full accrual incorporates your long-term capital assets, the buildings that we're in, the roads, the infrastructures. It also includes your long-term liabilities on your notes payable, your capital leases. It also includes your net pension asset, all those sort of things. So those are.
Is this what the state made us do a couple years ago, Donnie? The accrual system?
Yes.
Yeah.
We still have a cash system somewhere hidden?
Well, through the year, we tend to focus the way we always did, but yes.
Yeah. So all my counties that I do maintain cash books throughout the year, and then they adjust at year end. So, so again, this page has all those assets and liabilities that aren't going to be turned over into cash in the next 6 months or paid out in cash. You talk pension assets, capital assets; those are meant for future. So just a few key numbers on this page. You'll see middle part of the page, total assets and deferred outflows of about 28 million. Lion's share of that is in those capital assets, roughly 16 million. The next piece is cash and cash equivalents, which is at the very top. You will notice that under non-current assets, you guys are running a net pension asset at the end of the year of $957,000. You compare that to last year, that was roughly a $1.8 million liability, so it did swing from being an unfunded plan to being a fully funded plan. I'll touch on what's going on with IMRF, but next year I would not anticipate that to be a fully funded plan. The plan is, the information presented in here is 11 months in arrears. They present information on the calendar year, so you have information as of 12/31/17, which was a very good plan return year for IMRF. Okay.
How do we compare to the other counties you do in just this area?
From having a net pension asset, I think I have, of the 12, I think there's maybe 3 of them that are sitting in an asset.
That have made decisions along the way to get
Yes.
things. I told you guys that there's a lot of counties out there that have kind of put it on the back burner, but I'm glad we didn't.
Because in 07, 08, I think you had that chance to not catch up for the bad market years. Some of my counties decided just to kind of, I'll say, kick the can. Clearly, Edgar County chose for that higher rate, so
We
that's
put in,
yep. Then put in extra. Yep.
we put in a lot extra over the last,
Right.
in addition to what we get charged monthly.
Right. All right, so let's turn to pages 15 and 16.
I'll take this personally, but I have to go.
He let us know.
Good luck.
Good luck,
You
Phil.
guys have a nice day.
I'll get your
Be
stuff in
careful.
order.
So pages 15 and 16, now we go back to what I mentioned before was the modified accrual basis. So these are assets and liabilities, for the most part, with the exception of your property taxes that have been collected in cash and or paid in cash, or paid out. So your due from state of Illinois at this point has been collected. And that's usually like your state income tax, your sales tax, those sort of items. Your property taxes are gonna be collected here in the very near future. So what you wanna focus in on this page is on page 16. So there's, down at the bottom, there's lines labeled fund balance. So you have roughly 4.9 million of fund balances. The lion's share of those dollars are in restricted funds. So that's the nature of the revenue. So you have, you have highway funds, you have, excuse me, health department funds, those special tax funds that are to be used for that particular purpose. So very, very common that you have large restricted balances at counties.
What is the difference between the restricted and the committed?
Restricted is because of the revenue source. There's usually there is a state statute backing
Sure.
that up. Committed is gonna be based on board decision.
Okay,
IMRF,
Yeah.
FICA.
restricted,
tort,
yeah,
those are all restricted.
Yep.
We can't borrow from them.
right, we
use
can't
them.
change them. Committed is what we've
We
decided,
can only
committed
use
the
them
money
for
to.
certain
Gotcha.
statutory purposes.
Yep. All right, so pages 18 and 19. So again, just some key figures on this. So I like to look at the net change in fund balance. It's the third line from the bottom. And on page 19, you'll see that the funds increased slightly, 67,207. So that kind of pushes the county all together. You will see a line labeled as restated.
We're 67.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said
Yep.
on 19.
Yep.
I was like,
So you'll see there's a line labeled, second from the bottom, that says as restated. During the process of the audit, we became aware of some funds that should have been reported as some agency funds. So I'll go over the impact of the restatement from last year in just a few minutes. So let's see, page 22 starts your footnotes to the financial statements. Note number 1 are your significant accounting policies. Let's turn to page 30. Note number 3 at the very top. So this is the disclosure about the county's deposits. It lets you know that the county's deposits were covered either by FDIC or pledge collateral in the county's names. So it means that your deposits were properly secured and collateralized. So that is good to know. All right. Page 32. We've already, excuse me, talked a little bit about your pension plans, but note number 6. This starts the disclosure for the pension plans. As I mentioned before, the disclosure is as of 12/31/17. So it is 11 months in arrears. Let's look at each of the 3 plans that the county has. Turn to page 35. So page 35 is a nice recap of the activity for the year for the regular plan. Here again, this is just the regular plan. So how you read this across is it starts as the pension liability, so that's what you owe to your regular people. The plan net position are the assets that are being held to pay the net pension liability, and then it gives you the net result, the net pension liability and or asset. So the beginning of the year you had a liability of $913,000. At the end of the year you had an asset of $816,000. You may ask why, what caused it? I brought that up in the beginning. The net investment income, so third line from the bottom of the changes for the year, you'll see that there was $2.6 million of investment income on your plan this year. I think it was running at 16-17% return. That is phenomenal for IMRF. It's one of the highest that I've seen. So overall, this plan is funded, I've got a percent here, it's funded at 105%, which is really good.
So this falls like the others as far as the time frame we're looking at, so these numbers are reflecting what year?
12/31/17.
Okay, so the 17 years, so that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'll let you know, since you bring it up, I have some calendar year audits, so I get 12/31 IMRF information, and I'm seeing negative numbers
Yes.
in there. It's not a surprise.
That's why you're saying that next year we're gonna
Yeah.
see something.
I'm-
It will not look that good.
It should flip.
But it's still gonna be better than a lot of folks, because we have been,
Put next year.
and it's all gonna, you can't just look at one year either.
Right, it's over the life.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How much do we still owe from, what, 6 or 8 years ago, when it was, what, 600,000 or something?
We're caught up.
We'll call it, good.
So let's turn to page 39. So this is the sheriff's plan, same tabular reconciliation. Again, beginning of the year liability was 521,000. The ending was an asset 268,000. This plan had 1.1 million of investment income. So that plan was funded at 104%. I'll remind you, those assets are not being held at the county. Those are being invested at the IMRF level, okay?
They're not in our accounts.
No.
I mean,
But we're working on it, we're trying to get that.
I bet we could find a broker that'd like to handle it.
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
So let's go to page 43. So page 43 is that ECHO, the elected to county officials plan. Again, that's the only plan that's sitting in a liability situation. It had an opening liability of 427,000. The ending was 127,000. So again, when you add up those three plans, that's what makes that net pension asset on the front page. That plan is funded at 96%. Yeah. So when you add up the net investment income for those three plans, it was roughly $4.2 million. And there's roughly 26 million of plan assets. You compare that to prior year, so the 11/30/17 audit, it was 1.5 million. And I'm telling you, it's gonna be a loss next year. I'm already seeing reports, and I'm just making you be aware of that, so that will be on its way, so.
Yeah.
Did
You hear that, Augie? Don't retire this year.
Want to remind everybody that anything that's underfunded as of December 31st each year, they charge a 7% interest. So, if, you know, that one year,
We went,
all they charged us $70,000 or $80,000. It was some crazy amount, and that's why we kind of started paying that down, because
well, we could borrow money cheaper.
well, we had 400,000, didn't we? that we
it saved us $28,000 the minute we pay. As long as we pay it before December 31st each year. It's whatever the balance is January 1st of each year.
So you have two things working against you next year too. You guys have heard about the single discount rates dropped from 7.5% down to 7.25%. So that's gonna be hitting next year's as well. I know there's been a lot of debate as to why are you changing this rate on us. It's been that rate for years and years and years. So it isn't going to be impacting the pension liability next year as well, so that will drive up pension liability as your assets are going down. So again, some of those decisions are made by actuaries, and just kind of
Well,
what you
actually,
guys
the
have to
state
deal with.
doesn't have that much money. I mean, in a way they have our money, in a way they don't, because the pension funds are so underfunded, right? They just have anything to do with
Except
that.
IMRF. IMRF is a very well,
Okay.
Fund- pen-
That's
fund.
fine. I get a teacher's pension, and they talk, it's underfunded by billions of dollars.
I do school district audits as well, and it's funded at about 30 to 40%
Right.
compared to this
I
one
mean,
where you're nearly fully funded.
We have a lot of money in it because of the investments and so forth. It's not just gonna go, defunct, the same token, not funded what should be funded.
That's true. Note number 7, page 45, so just the next page. So this is a recap of the long-term obligations that you have, along with the future principal and interest payments on those. So you can see what is upcoming. Let's turn to page 50. Note number 16. So I mentioned at the onset that we had a restatement of the opening net position. You'll see that the prior auditors had reported that the overall net position at the beginning was a deficit of 3.5 million, but they had miscalculated the pension obligations to where there was roughly, they were reporting that there was a pension liability of 24 million on your books. They weren't taking into account all the assets that you had. So the net effect is really, a $22 million swing. We're reporting your opening balance to be roughly 18.5 million, and they reported a negative 3.5 million. So
I like this one better.
that's good. That it was going the right way. So again, just to kind of recap that in case you're trying to reconcile between the 2 years. Let's turn to page, as far as the financial report, let's turn to page 52. So this is a recap of the county general fund's budget to actual. So you had anticipated that fund was gonna basically break even, but that was with the help of issuing some tax anticipation notes. The fund did decrease 124,000. You'll see that's down at the very bottom, the net change in fund balance. So you didn't issue those tax anticipation notes.
No, we would have paid them back anyway.
You would have, okay.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
not the reason.
All right.
We had a shortfall of some of our tax monies,
Okay. Just those
state tax monies,
Okay.
especially sales tax.
Gotcha. So let's, maybe one last thing. I don't want to harp a whole lot on pensions, but there are some more pages 58, 59, and 60 that give you some good information on your pension plans. These are really, 50, start on 58.
Sure.
So we recap your IMRF regular plan, the Schlepp plan, and the ECHO plan on these pages, and really the key thing to look at on here, at least on page 58, down in the middle is that net investment income. And I know that draft stamp's kind of in the way, but you'll see that net investment income of $2,589,000 was that high water mark compared to 2015 where it was at $69,000. So just, this eventually will be a 10-year schedule for everyone to look at and see kind of the ebbs and flows of investment income. Again, I like that because it does give a recap of those plans to you guys. So the rest of the information in here is a lot of detail on the funds. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I am working also I usually give to my county boards, county finance committees, or a group like this, some 5-year information that kind of pulls you away from all the detail. Because we had so many restatements last year, I want to wait another year to give you some of this information, so I'll give you more documentation maybe moving forward, but it may be a little bit more relevant information to you guys. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of the financial report. You guys can ask some good questions. Are there any other questions on the financial report?
I just got one, something new this year, and I don't know if the board knew about it. The department heads definitely knew about it because they had a spreadsheet they needed to fill out about a compensation on the books for each employee. Like if they depart for whatever reason, you have an obligation to pay for up to 45 days for sick days. Where would that be in here? Do you know, is there some big number?
So if you go to page 13.
13?
There's a line under long-term liabilities labeled accrued compensated absence. That's the amount that Don's referring to, $218,260.
Here, okay. I'm not saying I was blown out of the water, but that's basically at this, a snapshot of what we owe our employees if they were all to quit right now. There's where we are. And of course, we know that that's not gonna happen, but when you have, we see the IMRF where we have to do this accelerated payment. When somebody quits, they crunch the numbers, and then we have to come up with a lot of times it's $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. We have to give them IMRF to bring that account, or bring that, their projection up for what.
Is that kind of like accrued vacation time, stuff like that?
Everything.
Now, do you take into account that we have time limits? In other words, some of that stuff can only be accrued for so long.
Yeah, you can, the key thing that really has cost us here on some of the people that have retired is the fact that if they have 90 days on the books, we'll just call it 90 days of sick time, they can get paid for up to 45 days. That's 2.5, that's basically over 2 months worth of wages. And that ends up adding up to several $1,000s. And I'm not saying we need to change that. That's the last thing I'm going to suggest. I'm just saying we need to remember that I'm glad that this got introduced into our audit, because we need to know what kind of, we always know our liabilities. Oh, we owe this for this and this and that and insurance and everything, but we never thought about what we owed on the books to our employees. And there's where we do not want to get in trouble. We don't ever want to shortchange the employees upon their termination, or we look like the bad guys.
It just makes, whoa, I'm sorry.
Calm down, John.
I've been there and sucked at that, so I know what it's like.
Well, but that's kind of the challenge too, because it's a potential liability, not the actual liability, and, you know, it's.
But that affects our numbers. That was a $200,000 out of the blue. It just got put
It
on.
just popped up there that
Got
hadn't
put
been
on
there
paper.
before.
I think we take into account some of that towards the end of the year, because the payrolls balloon about the last 2 payrolls where people are trying to catch up on things.
Yeah.
A lot of folks cash out on that, but then it's just reaccrued. I mean, it comes right back in.
Yeah, because they can only carry over 10 vacation days, so they go ahead and get paid out.
They get paid for every sick time when they retire.
We can pay out vacation time if it's unused, and they
Yes.
continue to employ, okay.
Yeah, a lot of people will take any unused sick and apply it to their IMRF benefit.
Right.
That's what we
Okay.
typically
Okay,
see.
yeah, so
IMRF has some caveats with that.
Okay, well, it's more of an employment question than an auditing, but,
Yep.
yeah, I didn't but that goes into the IRMF fund, we don't write them a check, they can just roll it into their pension plan, okay,
Right.
that's reasonable.
So just the, last thing, I know I'd given you guys a circuit clerk audit, that's required by state statute. We had an unmodified opinion there, so just to let you know that's a separate report that we have to do for that office. The county was not subject to a single audit this year. A single audit is if you receive and expend more than $750,000 of federal awards on federal programs. You can get that a lot when you have a larger health department. So if you guys didn't meet that threshold for needing a single audit, so next year.
We may.
And we'll keep it up. We confirm with the state.
And we've done that in the past, so.
Yes.
It probably comes and goes. So anyway, that's all I have. I know, just to make sure you guys are aware, the group of people you have on staff is really professional. They did a great job of replying to our team. So just to make you guys aware of that. So
Makes your job easier for you.
it does. They do a great job.
My grandson, he's Oliver,
Oh, good.
yeah, up in Mount Me, Ohio,
Okay.
yeah.
Next year it'll be a whole different ballgame. Meaning you've already got all the preliminary stuff. It'll be
we can speak your language now, so to speak.
Get used to each other.
So that's all that I have, so thank you very much. Any questions, any further questions? Thank you. And again, just, we will be issuing these finals here soon, so.
Yeah, I've got a couple of figures to get you.
And we'll
We'll talk.
get everything back. Thank you guys.
Just one quick thing,
Sure.
and I think you answered it well, but in the summary you were talking about there were some, I hate to use the word issues, but it's not necessarily separated out ideally, but that is because of the limited number of people. We don't have a separate department doing their own auditing, and I got the impression that you're fine with how we're doing it, and there's really, short of doubling our employment, there's nothing we can really do about it, and keep meddling the best we can.
Yeah, and that finding, as you're talking about, is noted in the audit.
Yeah,
It's very common with counties your size where we have multiple
sure.
offices that have some internal controls, segregation of duties issues, so yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
Yeah, that's how I read it. I just was kind of wanting
Yep.
some clarification that there wasn't
Yep, good
anything
question.
else that could really
And a good
be
question.
changed.
Yeah, we brought that up with Josh right off the get-go, that within our office, we try our best
Yeah,
with separation duties, but you just can't.
sure.
But
No,
I do
I've been
know
in
that-
your office, everybody needs to be able to do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
One person never does it. The receipting, the taking out the receipting and everything and the deposit. We just make sure no one person does it all. So.
Alright, thank you.
Thank you.
Checks in the mail, Matthew.
Andy?
Don't cash it for a while.
Not much, I'm kinda waiting still to hear from, we're waiting on information from, Mark on the smart watch. Oh, yeah.
Just keep us posted, we'll get it on the agenda the minute we can.
How are we with the health department and working with the smart watch and sorting that all out?
I explained everything to her, I may wanna follow up and give her, you and I discussed some actual numbers. I mean, you look at that report, it doesn't give you, it's what it's gonna cost you, so,
I mean, I assume that we're gonna have to have an actual contract, right? Like,
Right.
we have to write something out and all parties agree and sign it, because, I mean, this is gonna be, might outdate all of us that are sitting around now,
Right.
as far as on the board and that health department, so we gotta make sure that that's done the right way, and we obviously want their input on that, and make sure all parties are in agreement before we get it generated, I guess, so. And I would think that before we sign any final paperwork with Smartwatch, that has to be done.
Right.
Otherwise, we could be exposing ourselves to some risk there.
so, we're just kinda waiting on some information from that.
Dan?
Well, sorry, just, what's the latest with, this isn't necessarily apply, but Ross and all that stuff?
Well, I can't go back to emails, but he said he would get something together, and that was something I was gonna, I need to probe him again.
Be gentle.
Yeah. How about a club?
Yeah, I mean,
Cause he said he was gonna, he agreed with me, I said, we need to get something done, and we're gonna try, I'd like to try to implement the stages, first one being the sheriff's office. Try to get all the cameras working, so he said he was gonna, he goes, I'll get with that. Yeah, he agreed that we need to get moving on that,
yeah.
but I'll contact him again this afternoon.
Well, and I haven't heard anything about the status, but these changes that are supposed to be taking place where all of these fines are now going to the state central depository, and is that gonna change the status of our account? Like, are they, you just never know. I have no idea what's gonna happen, but I'm wondering if we're on a timeline here. we just signed that paperwork as it pertains to fines and standardized across the board. That ties into what we discussed with the judges and the security fund and all that. So that, the money that we're talking about using, that fund, that whole
Court security.
rubric is going away, right?
Well,
And
it's
so-
not gonna disappear.
No,
We have the money.
We don't
in the
have
fund
to
now.
send those funds anywhere.
That's good. I guess that's my question, right?
What's
Are we-
gonna change, and remember Angie
There's one
said,
there.
until we're into it, we're not gonna know how. There's some good things and there's some bad things. We don't know how it's gonna shake out.
Early on, there was some talk, I think, that the state was gonna come in there,
right.
we're taking
Maybe that's
this fund,
what-
that fund, and this fund, which I think it's all July the first, but it,
That's right.
I haven't heard much more on it here lately. But
Okay.
I don't think it's quite as drastic as what everybody was led to believe to start with.
The state police is gonna take over.
But they are, I mean, the funds will start going to the state police
Right, the
From
new
that-
funds.
instead of us. Right.
Okay, from this point on, but not from,
Yeah, what we, the way I understand it now, what we've got is still ours.
Yeah,
When I
cause that'd be a
refused to
real
give them the
kick.
money, I expected a penthouse.
I didn't mean to throw everybody into panic, I just wanted to confirm that if anybody knew for
Well,
sure.
but we still need to get that stuff.
Absolutely,
If we're gonna spend 28 grand, we need to spend it.
right,
I
right.
mean, we've needed some of those things, or those, technology things in place long before this.
agreed.
And Doty, which I think is who Ross has been dealing with
The guys out Terre Haute,
out of Terre Haute.
yeah.
When I leave here, I'll see if I can catch him, because he was supposed to be in town. They work on a vehicle. If I can
Okay.
catch him.
Ask him for
Because
crosses.
the son is the one that does all the technology stuff with the cameras and
Okay.
security and all that. So
Okay. Sir?
Had our health department meeting last week. I think Janet went ahead with the fiber optics by herself, I think, so that's gonna be set up. I know we talked about 4 different areas, but she's going ahead and do it, because according to her, she really needs it.
Sounds like she does.
Well, we found that was not gonna be an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, it
I
was,
mean, it's gonna save her, I think it's gonna pay for itself.
Oh, yeah, I think so,
Oh,
too.
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, the new negotiations were good.
Yeah, a couple of compliments, one from the schools on the dental is really doing well. And then, if you notice, the restaurants now have the green sign. I think most of them have a green sign now, so we took care of that last month or 2 months ago, and I think one restaurant complained a lot. We got that straightened out. And then I had a couple of donations for food for my cats, which I appreciated. The ones on Wood Street, so it makes it kinda nice. The house is, I don't know what to do with it. I leave the weeds where you can't see the house. I mow the grass, but also the bank I can't do right now, but I'll try to get somebody to come in and cut the weeds on the bank, so. Other than that, nothing.
Did they talk about the smart watch stuff at the meeting?
Yeah. She's happy with it because they met with Sycamore and SmartWatt, and there's some things that need to be done that I guess SmartWatt will do. Some of the valves, I think, and the, not the, what do we call them, radiator things on the sides of the wall be taken out.
You know where they are.
Oh, yeah.
They run kind of down the middle of
Yeah,
that.
right.
And then
Yeah,
there's a whole
both
wasted
sides.
space on that backside, so
Both
they're,
sides,
they said that they need to take those
yeah.
out.
Right. We're planning on taking those out, so, well, she's happy with it, so.
So the board is on board with doing this?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, we all agreed with it, so.
Was there a discussion, I mean, did you have the cost spreadsheet? There was no talk about that
No, I
yet,
didn't talk
so
about the cost.
that's the piece we gotta
But
get.
usually what they do over there comes out of their budget, and they're not hurting for money, so.
Looks good.
Unusual for a state funded.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Rare bird.
John?
Nothing.
Carl?
No.
Don? Oh, no, I'm sorry, Don's not.
We don't want to hear him.
We heard enough from you
Now,
today.
say blood by proxy and I'll come up with
But he
something.
never said anything anyway, so.
Derek?
saw an excavator running out there at the airport, so it's a good sign. So I
Are
haven't
they
been out there
starting the
to actually-
project? Good.
I assume so. Hopefully they're not.
Yeah,
making a
they
mass
put
grave
in
or
the
something
temp
out there.
road and they're moving dirt for cutting out the new, apron.
Yeah, as far as the other project, I haven't seen any traffic over the last week or so since the meeting, which was, geez, a week ago probably, you know, so, I'll let you know on that. The federal project, that was the 100% funded piece that we put in 2 projects for, at least on this iteration, we weren't selected, the only 2 in Illinois were, Champaign and Peoria, is that what it was?
Something like that.
Somewhere else, so.
That or Van Day or something.
Yeah, bigger airports with, Champaign was actually a runway, so big project. So, but, yeah, we'll keep her in the ground, maybe we'll get another shot at it or something, so.
Sheriff?
Not much. It looks like they built a cement pond up behind the jail this week.
It does.
I think it's nice they're gonna have a swimming pool back there for the inmates.
Is that Olympic?
Gonna be a little hard to keep the water in on that low side.
Yeah. Yeah, their level was off, I think.
The parking lot on the west side of the Hague property is pretty well there and the topsoil's in and there are obviously some more things to do, but it's moved right along.
It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, it does.
So,
That was a heck of a curb they put in back in
Yeah,
the
it
jail.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy to do that.
See, I didn't know they were doing that. That was gonna be one of the fall projects, I thought.
well, they're just.
And they had everything there, so I think he just
Yeah,
done
he
it.
just went ahead and did that part,
Yeah.
so.
Strike while the iron's hot.
That'll look nice.
And the motivation was there, I think, and momentum.
Timing, of course, it's rained and kept us off of some other projects, so
As long as the deputies don't drive over it.
they'll just do it once.
Right.
Have you been able to, replace any vehicles yet?
I'm just waiting for the check. They called me the other day and check was in the mail. I haven't seen it yet, but so I'm just waiting on it to. And then the auditor will be here. 2 or 3 of us went to the IPM MG meeting. That auditor's gonna be here Friday afternoon,
Okay.
possibly.
Oh, from the insurance company?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
You just got back from a week at the beach, right?
yeah.
No, but that was some class to help bring down our insurance rates.
Pretty good class, really.
That's good.
And your guys are participating as much as, are on the computer?
On the
and
computer
video?
stuff, we're just getting it rolling now, so.
Alright.
Do you have a, employee for Shiloh yet, for the resource next year? Heard they have some applicants.
We got some applicants, but nobody has the qualifications.
Oh, okay.
Had a guy I thought was gonna take it, that would've been perfect, and then he decided, I don't think I wanna do that, so we're back to square one.
Augie?
Update on our tax cycle. We hope to finish this week. Our time consumer are the drainage ditches. And it's a little more difficult than just levying for a drainage ditch. I mean, they have values, and then you have to factor, and then these parcels will split, and those parcels will split, and Jolene was working on one ditch that had over 385 parcels in it, and you have to make that all balance out. So that is very time consuming, and for some reason, what we had entered last year was not there this year. And so that's a vendor issue that we're addressing, I'm addressing.
That would've never happened with Metatron.
It never would have, it would have been there. And so I'm disappointed at that, but last Friday was my target date to be able to hand it off to Donald. So it looks like it's gonna be later this weekend, so. keep
And
my
when
fingers
we
crossed.
get it, we've got several days of inputting some back taxes and stuff that we have to add. But we do have the paper there, ready to print them up, and the envelopes are, we've got enough to get us started, but the others are on order, so we're, as soon as, when Augie shifts to us, we'll look hard at the calendar and set our dates and go from there.
What does a lawyer have to do with drainage ditches?
Excuse me?
What does a lawyer have to do
It's a
with
joke.
drainage ditches? We pay a lawyer every year, so much for a drainage ditch.
Basically water rights, because if you dam up a ditch, it affects everybody
We don't
upstream.
pay it.
I
Yeah.
know, but I just wondered, he gets, I mean, the lawyer gets paid, but I just wonder what the lawyer's job is. Maybe I could do that.
Wait,
Well, they file the levies for the drainage districts and things like that.
Yeah.
Write letters of appointment and
Okay.
recommendations and stuff like that.
They work with the weed warden to,
I'm just weed breaking.
No, I wish they worked together a little more, but
Don, do you want to speak to the cash flow real quick?
Just that I enjoyed printing these reports out today because we'd actually, because of the timing of this study session, we've had all the state payments come in for the month, and we got a very healthy income tax check or deposit of $126,000. I don't think in the 12 years that I've been here, we've never hit I don't even know if we've ever had over 100,000 for a month. Can't explain it. Hope it's not a mistake.
everybody's shopping at Kroger because it's gonna close.
But the money's in the account and they're not getting it back without, you know.
Another
Fight,
one.
you're gonna fight, aren't you, Don?
Yeah, from my cold dead hands is one of my favorite people
Maybe
said.
it's some of the stuff they shorted us last year. Don't tell me.
Yeah.
Just having fun.
But we will have enough to meet the payroll that Pam's working on right now. And I don't see why we couldn't have enough for the demand batch. By the way, this demand batch is gonna have about a $25,000 financial software demand check. Got it back in February, but they always know I wait to as long as I can to pay it. They don't charge us extra for it. And so do not be surprised when you see that. It was a demand that I did and they've already got it, so.
is this the tax software? Maybe
No,
we'll get
this
that
is
data
the
when we get
financial
the
software.
check.
This is what we used to get your paycheck for you, Derek.
Oh,
We run a-
that's important.
what else is there anything?
How much money does Kroger's closing hurt on our sales tax that we get?
I don't know, that it'll just end up going, people end up going to Walmart or somewhere else.
Around town?
Remember, food is only taxed.
Right.
Yeah, right,
at
right.
one per- I mean,
Yeah.
I just had a question, and I was looking to you earlier about, like, can you explain, and maybe I'm just dense on this, but when we talk about, during the audit process, we're talking about, you know, how the account is performed, what our balance is, and then how that pertains to what we paid off. Is that a running?
Are we
Potentially with-
IMRF?
Yes. So potentially, if we string together some bad years, we go into an actual recession where we're not going to recover. Like, so our 18 down, if we're talking about some percentage of stock, that negative number we're going to see for 18 is going to, you know, be balanced out by 19, right? But if we run into several years running where we're down, are we going to be in a scenario again where we need to pay extra? I mean, those things are all tied together, right?
Right, yeah, these projections, and
And so that's I mean, I guess that is, the percentage we pay on that is accrued annually, right? And so we at any time during the year can still save ourselves money because the way those work together, right? December 31 is when that comes out, and we don't know what our, you know, positive or negative is until after that fact. But we may again have to make that decision which was a great decision, and I would do it again in a second, you know. But I just was curious how that worked out, or if that was a one-time
well,
issue.
not that my opinion matters, but I can see next year when you levy for IMRF, I almost feel like you need to plan on bumping it up some, because I really feel like we would like to make, somewhere along the line, we'd like to make a bulk payment like we did, but you've already nailed it on it. These are all projections, and we won't know until probably it's too late. We already have our levies turned in, But just remember, anything we pay off by December 31st, that 400,000 we paid that 1 year saved us $28,000. I just, for us to just take $28,000, one day would make a difference. We paid on December 31st versus paying it a week later. We get nailed for $28,000, 7% of that. And I just, when I found that out, I thought, man, that's a hard lesson.
So it is that tight. It's not over that course of the year you're paying the 7%.
No,
It's
they do
immediately
it
January
instantly.
1.
Whatever your
They're based
negative
on
underfunded
projection.
amount is on the January 1st times 7%.
That's a hell of a racket.
Yes, it is. We paid a lot more than 28,000 over the years.
Augie?
Yeah, just to, not to write it too long, but the timing is not a coincidence, I guess. I did a IMRF webinar last week, and just a couple of just real high bullet points. Number one, yes, the rate of interest is going from 7.5 to 7.25, and IMRF had their investment returns were more in line with 7-8% ish, and they do not do anything on a knee-jerk reaction. Everything is based on a 10-year. It's like a rolling 10-year average. And they're a little behind because that's just the way they roll. And when you throw in the actuarial part of that, it's not just so easy as to say, well, we made a bunch of money last year, so your rate's lower this year, and then next year we're going to lose a bunch of money, and so it's going to cost you more. They try to average it out, and that webinar is available online through IMRF, and if anybody's interested in listening to that, yeah, I would be more than happy to send you the link. It's very informational. Of the 5-6 state pension plans, IMRF is not a part of the rest of those. So let me tell you that Springfield is doing all they can to try to reach in and grab that thing, because they are 90% funded all the way around. And so the nearest one in line, according to the CEO of IMRF, is somewhere funded at around 15%. So there is a stark difference between what IMRF is and what the rest of the state plans are. And you know, I'd like to commend the board also for the decisions that you've made over the last several years of making those optional cash payments. It really has made a difference. So what was the other highlight there? 90%, not part of the other. 7.5, 7.25 doesn't sound like much, but it will negatively impact us in that we will have to contribute more. There's a phase in. We have an option to, like Matt said, we can kick that can down the road. Obviously, it's my recommendation we do not do that.
When do we have to make that decision?
That is a good question. I think that is beginning next year.
Well, we need to.
I understand. I understand. So we'll find that out and let you know that.
Let me flesh that out for I don't understand. Sorry. So when we're talking about that 7.25 piece, is that on both sides? So our
That's what they pay. That's what the rate of interest that IMRF assets are earning.
They're projecting a lower asset earning for future use.
so that's just strictly projection of investment
Right.
returns.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh. But that is tied into what they charge us if we're
Right,
Yeah.
and if they've got a lower return, you know, some of the bigger districts or counties, it can mean $1+ million that they're gonna pay extra a year.
Sure.
That half a percent or 1/4%. I'd like to remind you that over the last 6 or 7 years, not only we made that 450, I think we figured what total of $800,000 additional dollars that we paid so that's a lot of money. I'd like to remind you in the budget, they ask us to pay extra every month over and above our payroll. And currently that amount is 3,200?
Yeah, 3,000 plus, yes.
Right, so we're paying an extra $36,000 a year towards any deficit, plus what we could do as far as a bulk payment, okay? I know several people on IMRF retirement, and they're funded so well, most retirees get 13 payments a year instead of 12. They go ahead and send them in January an extra payment.
July,
Or is it July?
July,
Okay,
yeah.
I thought Lonnie said it doesn't matter. Anyway, they're getting an extra payment.
Used to be almost like same as your monthly payment, but now it's way down.
Well,
But I mean, there's a little extra, but
Yeah.
it don't amount to a whole lot.
anyway, yes, John?
Yeah, I just want to clarify for us and what we may potentially have to do as I understand it. Don, do we need to have in place, since the deadline is January 1st, between the December 21st and January 1st, do we have to have something approved to give you the option to be able to borrow money at a lower rate in case the market does tank and we have to come up with that bulk payment? I mean, we obviously can't levy too much ahead of time on a maybe.
Well, I know that the time that we did do the bulk payment, it took a resolution,
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, I'm just wondering if we should,
but we had the money.
towards the end of the year, if we should have a resolution giving you the option just in case we need to,
Well-
This gets really confusing too, so when we're talking about our method of accounting and the issue at hand, like, and again, I don't know what the percentages are inside IMRF. I mean, it looks like there's at least some that sits in equity, right? And so we've already experienced that. So do we know, we should know now whether or not we owe money.
We've got a tentative.
And we missed it, right? That's already passed. That's a kind of a rare occurrence for the markets to be down like that at the end of the year, December. That almost never happens, but I mean, so is the expectation that we owe money?
Well, I think that's what Matt was saying.
And that's why it gets confusing, because we're
We're not gonna
real
get
time
dinged for that this year.
Okay.
Now, what Don and I do in October, and anybody else can join in for the fun, but basically in October, we take a look at the fund balance, figure out how much we're gonna need to pay through the next July in that particular fund, which is IMRF, because that's when the tax money comes in. You allot a little buffer there, and you see how much money is extra, okay? And then, it's taking it roughly,
Right.
and then if we've got 50 or 80 or whatever we happen to have extra because of the way things have gone, then we can always do that.
Do a resolution at the December board meeting to say, hey, we paid $50,000 towards whatever, and we've done that.
Yeah, I knew we've done it. That's why I was just wondering if we needed to make sure to keep that in mind come that time of year to give you that option so you can be flexible. I mean, I know we'd rather not, but
And I guess the operating
Just didn't
loan
have
could
to.
come later and fill in the gaps. Doesn't have to be, I guess that's.
yeah, I
haven't
mean,
borrowed
we have
money.
to have the cash there. It sounds like between December 21st and January 1st, if we have to do something, we have to be liquid enough to be able to do it, and we want to make sure we're liquid enough, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I
We
would,
haven't anticipated any dollars in that particular, in any of those funds. So that would be something new that we could consider.
yeah, as far as having the means to go borrow money, I mean, I can always step up the tax anticipation things and have it available by mid-December or whenever. But I don't know that was really not the intent of that.
No,
We'd
we'd have to get a reading from the state's attorney to see if we can
Yeah.
borrow money to save money.
But that's
Yeah,
not
I
the
just,
time,
like I
No.
said, I'm just trying to
We've never
make sure that
borrowed
we
money.
have the flexibility and the
We
liquidity
haven't had that much surplus.
to cover that in
At
a
that
worst case
time.
scenario.
Now,
when we voted on it, we didn't know, we talked about taking the loan out. I mean, that was part of that discussion in the vote.
Have we, well, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
no,
we
we've
did.
always had,
I thought we took.
When we made that big play in order to take out that chunk,
$400,000, we borrowed money from
we,
Prospect.
right, or at least if we didn't use it, we had the note saying how much we had to.
A line of credit, basically.
Right, and so, but I don't know if, whether or not we used it, that was part of the discussion,
Okay.
so.
we've never
already-
used any borrowing to pay these things, that 800,000.
Yeah, we didn't have to use
We
it.
didn't
I'm
have to
just
use it.
wondering if we need to have it, the line of credit, so to speak, in place in
I'm sorry,
case we would have to in the
miscommunicated.
future.
No, that's
We
fine.
I
have-
thought I remember doing that.
Well, I
We
know
talked
that,
about
we
it.
did.
I remember talking about it, but I didn't know we actually did
And
it.
I know when
we
we-
agreed that we could do that, but
Right.
we didn't, we didn't.
when we were experiencing a cash flow problem, it was caused because a couple, 3 years ago, we had depleted IMRF money.
That was
because-
when he and I
yeah,
both got.
So we're allowed to borrow from the general fund internally,
Yeah,
so
we did that.
the general fund was
Right.
basically supplementing the IMRF fund to meet payroll and everything.
For a couple months.
Yeah, and then over the past couple years, we finally got those levied funds where we've always got enough to get us through up to the tax season. But I know that the purpose of the tax anticipation warrant is, how does it read? We foresee a cash flow problem or a shortage or whatever. And I don't know that I would feel comfortable we experienced a shortfall because of, we don't have tax dollars yet. I'd hate to see us immediately use even though it'd save us money, I hate to.
Yeah, I guess my opinion is I'm down for a liberal reading of the law if we're saving our constituents money, or the county
Right.
money. Like you know.
Yeah, and if we have the money in the general fund to cover it on a short swing until we vote, that's fine. I just, and it's your call, I don't know. I just want to make sure that you do have, if
Well-
there's something we can do to make sure you have the flexibility and liquidity to cover
How much
the
money we
worst
got
case
left in
scenario
that
on the
fund?
IMF.
Well, going along with Derek's attitude right now, this liberal reading, I'm saying that
You're
if,
saying it's no problem.
let's say we have $200,000 sitting in our, which I'm just using that as number, sitting in our account by mid-December. If you make a decision to pay that 200,000 towards whatever, well, then we're basically forcing the hand of, we are going to have a shortfall of,
We're causing our own cash
IMRF, we're
flow
making
problem
ourselves
to-
go into that
Yeah.
shortfall. Then I could basically borrow on the line of credit, but it's, once you borrow, it doesn't come back, you pay it back and you can't borrow it again, as they say, I kinda call
For
it
the year.
a closed-in line of credit, whatever, so I don't know.
Well, and I mean, it sounds like it's a real-time decision year to year from that perspective, right?
And it's May now, I understand just kind of looking forward and seeing it come October, November, it's something we might want to think about.
I would think that here sometime, if not already, would IMRF, would they have somebody that could tell us where we're sitting?
Oh, yeah, which one is it? GASB 68,
Yeah,
58,
yeah.
54?
That's probably already been,
I think
yeah.
that's already out. I think I've sent that.
I think you probably
This
did.
is
But-
really confusing, because we're talking about things that have already happened that we're not being charged for yet.
That's the way IMRF
So
works.
they should
Yeah.
know exactly what we're
Well-
going to be arrears for, because
Especially given the
We've asked them that, and they are operating 2 years behind. That's their world right then and there. That's what they're looking at.
okay.
I don't understand it, Derek, but it's actuarial, it's long-term, but that's where they are. And so, I'll send you some things that
Yeah.
might shed some light on it, but
So if they're operating 2 years behind, we really can't get stuck on the short straw too bad, because we should know.
Well,
it'll
is it-
catch up to us. I mean,
Well, sure, but it's not something that we have to anticipate.
are we allowed to, I hate to say this, pay ahead? Meaning, let's say,
Yes, you can have a credit.
yeah, I mean, what would say, even though if we knew that at the end of December, they're saying we're not gonna owe money, but are we allowed to go ahead and pay a payment? Knowing that while it's sitting in the bank, it's only making 0.035% or whatever, but we know it's not only gonna make us money as a asset,
Right.
as a,
Yeah, do we get her 7% on her credit?
well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
asking. You talk about complicated, we could really make this.
Right. I like to throw wrenches and things, you know, right whenever I think.
I'll throw some money in if we can get the 7 1/4.
Can I have that in writing, please?
So you think they'll pay interest on it?
I don't know. It'd be because, man,
I doubt it.
Well, here's the other piece of the racket too. Based on what I understand of you're saying, if our borrowing rate from the bank was 7.25, we would still be advantaged to take the bank's loan because the bank will accrue that interest over the course of the year, whereas IMRS happens January 1.
yeah,
So
7% times it.
that's
Just so you'll know,
Right.
IMRF takes in $465,000. Our expenditures were $410,000 last year.
So theoretically, we got 55,000.
And the fund balance at the beginning of the year was 305, and right now it's 360.
right now a year ago
Right now, as
Yeah.
of November 30th,
of
17.
18.
No, this is
No.
a, no.
This.
Okay, what
This
page
is
you
the
on?
cash statement on
Oh.
page 19. I'm talking about FY18, okay?
Okay.
As of November 30th, our funds, not their funds, had $360,000 in it.
And we used 410,000?
Yes.
So we know that 360,000 is way more than
Right.
half
We
a
could
year.
make a bulk, and we pretty much operated on making payments based on not borrowing money. So we do in fact, instead of saving, or truly saving the 7% and not borrowing for 3 or 4%, which, you know, we can do things. But we, remember another thing, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers not to get that all jacked up, that levy, because, you know,
No, we need the levy as accurate as possible.
that's correct.
Well, several years, it's probably been a decade now, decade and a half. They thought about the taxpayers and they knocked the heck out of that levy.
Yeah.
And yes, it saved the taxpayers, but then that's why we saw the shortages several years later.
We're paying out about $35,000 a month for IMRF, of which $3,200 is paying ahead. So that 410 also included the 36,000 that we're paying ahead that they're asking us to do it, okay? So if you take that 35,000, that's only a 10 months fund balance, of which we need 8 of it to cover.
December through July. or whatever.
Right, does that make sense? So, I think it'd be a good idea that I ask Matt how, every once in a while, what kind of shape we're in, based on what he's seen, and what should we do. I mean, I know there are auditors, so they gotta be careful, they gotta kind of treat us at arm's length, but, I mean, they can tell us what other people are doing or what they suspect.
Well, 3 out of 12's in the same playing field as this. The other 9 sounds like they're paying a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Has this been helpful? I mean, we can borrow the money, I guess, if we have to, but I think we,
Well, I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If we're able, between you two, if we're able to put a reasonable amount in and pay ahead, and we can get that 725 clean, that's exactly what we wanna do.
Right.
well, if we could put $100,000 at the end of this year and not hurt ourselves, Why not do it? That's $7,000.
A little part of me gets irritated by the fact that there's a reason probably they're running at 90% because they've got a hell of a system in place to ensure that, right?
Right.
And so we're talking about being fiduciaries of the county's money and doing what we need to do, but at the same time, we're just dancing to the music here, you know, and that's frustrating, but I mean, it is what it is, so.
Well, it'll be interesting to find out what they try to tap us for, whether that 3,200. We could tell, what did that start off, 70-some hundred dollars?
Yeah, it was over
almost
7,000.
When we started making those payments, what, 3 or 4 years ago?
Oh, at least, yeah,
We were making payments before they ever asked for those.
correct.
And as we made payments, we saw that so it'll be interesting to see. We didn't make a payment last year, maybe we should have. Other things were on our minds. At any rate, if that goes up a little, we'll know we're not doing as good, but if it doesn't change, we'll know that, you know, things aren't terrible.
So they're putting out that 725, which is a prediction of returns based on the fact that a large portion of it is under, you know, muni bonds with certain credit rating that are paying a guaranteed amount, right?
Right.
So when the market fluctuates, when we have a good year or like we had in 17 or a bad year like 18, you know, credit markets haven't changed that much. So, you know, are they going by the 725? Or are they going by the actual return? Like, you know,
Gonna go by that 10-year average, aren't
They're
they?
going by that
strictly the 10-year average. So that, well,
They're,
per this discussion here, 18 or 17 was a really good year. Our numbers are great. So which is it? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, yeah, Matt says it's basically gonna flip-flop. We're not gonna be sitting this pretty at the end of this next audit.
But we're
I'm getting the
protected
impression.
by irrational fluctuations because they're still dealing with everything on a 10. Now Matt's given us an actual snapshot as of December 31st. IMRF is probably sitting there, well, yeah, we had a good year, then we had a bad year, but they're still operating on a 10-year.
so when they're giving us our number, they're using that 725, we hope.
We hope.
Yeah, so the bill isn't, okay, I assume the bill was figured on the annual rather than the 10-year composite.
Right, yeah, so I mean.
So, yeah,
we're talking about
that's
a
why I
snapshot,
was
or what's the
wondering if
odds?
we
Well, we'll
needed
know
some
in plenty of
flexibility.
time.
Okay.
We'll
I
know
think
in
that
plenty-
That-
GASB
that's my-
68 will,
No,
for
Yeah,
18 will.
that's my concern.
I'm
is
glad
that-
you guys care about
I'll write it
this.
down.
Yeah,
I mean, geez.
I just don't want, you know, the market's not so hot now, I just wanna make sure we have some flexibility if we do have to come up with some money on December 21st, that we can do it.
We have about 360 grand,
Okay,
which carries us most of the way through July.
which if that doesn't carry us, we all have enough other problems that we're not gonna worry that much about it.
Yes.
Gotcha.
from a county employee, well, I'm not a county employee, I'm an elected official, but Perry County told their employees recently that on payday, they couldn't meet their payroll. And they terminated a lot of people. So, putting that into perspective, we really are pretty good shape, all things considered.
If we could get the tax bills out.
If we could get those tax bills out, it would make us in
You
better
guys,
shape.
quit playing
Well, Augie,
around.
get to your office and get that stuff going.
It's okay with me if you take your time. Catch 22.
Damned if you do and damned if you
He
don't.
just went from board member to taxpayer right there, that quick.
All right. No, I'm glad we should talk about this stuff more. Really.
Well, it just makes me upset that I learned about this 7%. We had a running balance going, and I'm trying to think how much money we could have saved before that. But
Don't
anyway,
even
it's-
think, you know,
yeah.
you gotta look forward, and we did. And, you know, maybe we should have done more. Of course, that's not a lot left. You know,
Right.
7 months worth of 36 or whatever it wound up a month that's a fair amount of money, so 30.
Well, I mean, yeah, so some of these counties, they're never gonna get out of that hole. It's not gonna happen.
No.
Well, they're gonna face judgment day sooner or later. They're gonna have to start levying.
Yeah.
And that's what I have no idea what some of the counties are paying, like, we're paying 3,200. Can you imagine what some of them are paying a month?
No, I can't.
So. All right, you've got a copy of the budget, it's updated, Don told you about it.
So this is the one with Fran.
So, I plan on, getting feedback from you between now and the board meetings so we can make an appointment for the 911 board. And don't forget, we got the rides board, so if you guys got any ideas on that, we need to appoint somebody to that board. Augie, what else is in the tickler? You laughing at me? Yeah, I know what you're thinking.
There's gonna need to be appointment to the Housing Authority Board. I
Okay.
just got that.
That'll be somebody they recommend probably, right?
Yes.
I'm sure we've missed something, but that's,
It's not like there's nothing going on.
anything else?
I just wanna mention some, I've killed several birds with one stone. I gotta go look at some paperwork I have stored out here. If something would happen to me today or a year from now, remember, we have in the back corner of this building, Bob Wilson has put some boxes and stuff so whoever takes over from me can go out there and play in the paper pile.
Indiana Jones, like, the covenant, you know, you're the.
I'm the one that said that
Don lost all the
we
paperwork.
lost all the paperwork and,
I saw a truck back up there with the shredder on it.
well, eventually some of that can be shredded, but,
Especially the IMRF records.
oh,
Just kidding.
yeah.
Anything else come before the meeting? Motion to adjourn. Derek moves, Andy seconds, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned, gentlemen.